Welcome to the show we call New Intelligence. Well, simply for the reason that Wide World of Sports is already taken. To the more conscious, whatever everyone else is thinking is wrong, even if it's correct. One man told his mind, pick a subject, any subject, now forget it. Today's creation myth. In the beginning, everything was simple. Then life made man and things got more complicated. Then man conjured up his notions of what life is and things really went wild. In case you haven't noticed. Now on to our arts desk, and first for some music news. As a collection of greatest hits from the 70s, one man rethought all the thoughts he had had back then. And now from the ballet world. One man thought, God, I'm sick of the past. I just wish I'd get sick enough of it to do something about it. Yeah. And now the hockey scores. Gravity 6, wishing 0. The scientists have always believed they'd find the answer out there, and mystics in here. They've both gone about their respective business whilst living unawares in a one-room apartment with a dragon who already knows it. What if? What is civilization but opinion and opposing opinion, belief and counter-belief, supposition and alternative? Civilization, man's mental life externally writ. The simple are attracted to hormonal things, the more sophisticated, neural ones. But they both overdo it. You ever notice the Pope just about quit doing that, at least? But the times I see him filming him now. But that's right, he did have that act. Well, proverb update. One guy cut off his face to teach it a lesson for being upset regarding similar action he had taken against his nose to teach it one. Concordant. After a certain time, a more conscious man does not have to warn his parts to watch it. By then, they're well aware of what he's up to and seldom need reminding to stay out of the way. As the man was leaving the hospital, a reporter asked him if he had any advice to offer others based on his harrowing experience. And he replied, if I do, how much will I be paid for it? And the reporter replied, well, nothing, of course. And the man noted, well, does that not about say all that need be said regarding the matter of advice? A kid asked his old man, hey, I heard it said that if you simply float, you'll float downstream. How about it? And his papa replied, are we talking water sports here or matters mental? Facts. A view from the city. Fact. Hormones know it all. Fact. So what? What good does that do us? Concluding fact. Everyone who lives anywhere too specific is usually too parochial to ever see much of anything. Now on to stock quotations. One broker's latest theory of the market is that hormones and neurons both reside in the same metro area, but due to their individual allegiance to their own hood, each of their investment portfolios are restricted in scope. Moral, thought has its limits, but not the ones it puts on itself. Hey, said a man to his wife, I'm up 2 1/4, and she said, don't you wish? The difficulty in conveying nonpartisan thought to others is that it often seems like a silver bullet to their everyday werewolf awareness. Covering his ears from the child-driven cacophony, an older brother said to his younger sibling, kids sure do like to make a lot of noise. To which the lad responded, yes, and also simple-minded adults. And to that, they had to give one another a high-minded fraternal high five. One man thought, okay, let's try it again. If awareness is a river, then attention is a boat. No. If awareness is a boat, then attention is a rudder. Wait. If awareness is a boat, then attention could be, a motor. Later, when this effort had passed, he sat alone and thought, God, but I love my drugs and other major distractions. To the definitions desk, Donzetti. Collective intelligence, letting other people's attention be your attention. In the championship round of the Universal Sing-Off, the three finalist groups took their places and respectively let fly. In your head, that's where you live is in your head. In your bod, that's where you live is in your bod. And lastly, in this life, that's where you live is in this life. And the winner is... Part of being civilized, sane and ordinary, is in accepting ideas that aren't so because they sound good. One man was a lump of excessive asphalt on the shoulder of a highway and returned in the next life as a semi carrying watermelons. Praise be to reincarnation and a year-round growing season in California. A viewer says, wow, I recognize a literal telling of reality and understand the use of symbolism. It is not often that one encounters allegory presented as metaphor. Is this why at times I am able to pick up your show on multiple channels simultaneously? One boy noted to his kid sister, no one's actually religious past the age of 12. After that, they're just frightened and faking it. And now this De Soto Voce excerpt from the Mystic's Secret Handbook. What ordinary people call thinking is damn near embarrassing. And this letter into the office of Dr. Knowledge. Dear Doctor, is it possible to be a mystic and still think like everyone else? Dear sir, replied the doctor, if what you mean to ask is if you can be a mystic and still be able to think like everyone else, the answer is, hey, that's the only way you ever even get started. P.S. Should I be kind of dumb and sort of hope that you get what I mean? Attention time on the show. If you have to quote others to make your point, you don't get the point. See, kid, said a guy to a kid who wanted answers, the thing is, everything you want to know, life already knows. Now go on out and play while you ponder what this signifies regarding your search. Now time for a middle school definition. Partisan thought, the best friend local reality ever had. And please, boys and girls, do not confuse this phrase with the more common word, blindness. Looking back over his life, one man said to his body, well, I must say, you've led me on quite a merry chase thus far. And it replied, hey, don't pull that shit on me. You already tried it 2 days ago in your mind. Oh, he replied. The ABCs of new intelligence. A, everyone's consciousness is their own private affair. B, everyone's consciousness is publicly conceived. C, no one but a mystic can count past C. Now back to the kitchen for more tips on maximizing maxims. Getting past the first step doesn't mean anything if your second is just going to be a repeat of the first. And from the Chef's Dictionary, nonpartisan thought, the non-commercial brand of mental burger helper. Wall Street tip, only those dealing in monetary trades can actually overextend themselves. The leaner and poorer the more alert become, the stronger and richer they get. One man's take. Talk means nothing, but without it, there's nothing to talk about. Awareness and attention, another look at it. Animals have attention, but no awareness of their attention. Men have both, and the potential to exercise them simultaneously. but it is just a potential. But don't let that stop you. A legend amongst one faraway peoples asserts that, while alive, man is a ventriloquist dummy, and life the ventriloquist. And when you die, the positions are reversed. The tale did originally include mention of those who struggle for a greater individual consciousness, but tactical termites destroyed that part of their records. A gentleman writes, the doctor of knowledge, "Dear doctor, what exactly is civilization other than simply talk?" And the doctor replied, "Hey, you got me." How comes it, thought a lad who had been watching our show, that the simple seem to want to make their physical existence more complicated, while the more conscious appear headed in the opposite direction? A viewer writes, "Recently, while channel surfing, I thought I'd drowned. But no, I just accidentally tuned in on your program." From our vis-a-vis desk, hormones are reality, neurons metaphors. Then when neurons produce verbal reality, it becomes a metaphor. Now a couple of related humorous stories. Even if you have the ability to be original, there's still the two problems of remembering to be and making an effort to be. One man was so faithful to the traditions of his mystical school that even after he died, it was many years before he let anyone know. And if you're right, I don't see anything funny or connected about either one of them. No, you wouldn't. One man's latest grasp of it is, if the collective actually knew anything, they wouldn't be the collective. You got to admit, it's hard to argue with things you can't argue with. The proper definition of what ordinary people call the truth is a certain electrochemical consistency. Man's routine mental life, the reliance on precedent where none validly exists. Anger, a verbal postcard from paradise. All anger comes from the guts. All foolish displays from the mouth. Anger, you gotta love it. Wish you were here, Beatrice dear. Okay, another difference between a mystic and a routine performer is that to stay in business, if it comes to a decision of having to either please his audience or himself, the latter will choose the former. When words cease being information or at least entertainment, they become drug-like. A correspondent muses, "Seems to me that a mystic would have to be either a concussive cream puff or a fortress filled with mousse. Oh, P.S. I guess he could be something else also, yours, etc." Today's useful secret legend. Everyone has a twin brother or sister who feels better than they do if they could just find them. They call stories about everyday people human interest stories so that you'll think they're interesting. Entertainment and the transcendental. First, fully defined and described, the great secret work, the grandest production on Broadway, and when working right, sans marquee. Now an occupational update. If they're not impersonally, objectively trying to make you more conscious, then no matter what they're peddling or whatever it's cost, they're dishonest sidewalk shills trying to take you and themselves in the city's oldest running con game. A kid stopped, cupped his ear and asked his father, "Hey, what was that?" And the old man replied, "It's nothing." And the kid insisted, "No, didn't you hear that? It was something." And the elder replied, "Oh, I heard it all right, but it was still nothing. It was just the sound of life." Hormones, love, and the transcendental thinker. Everyone is looking for their other half, except the mystic. He is his. If you recall, you don't have to recall, but I was going to mention some more about what men know collectively, what they believe they know, what they will accept as being true, correct, valid, definitive, and how it can be seen otherwise in a way that is not prejudicial, it's not partisan. It can simply be seen at another level. And using as metaphors inside the hymns of allegories, go back and use hormones and neurons as defining the difference from the level of consciousness up and from the level of consciousness down. And to make it even more interesting to most ordinary people, since we've been talking about apparent history of philosophy and religion and other matters, I was going to point out that this thing about there being some sort of secret work or people involved with some attempted mythical struggle throughout history, some sort of personal nervous system alchemy. If you notice throughout history, and let's just take it as, without me inferring any more than is normally accepted, throughout history you do not see female Buddhas. You do not see women Jesuses, that apparently this sort of thing. And damn seldom is there even a message in an academic sense of women philosophers. The distaff seems to have had no great historical part in such matters. But now let's consider it. And for those of you that are using your hearing aids as a shortwave radio, and who had one of those Phillips screwdriver drinks before you came in. It's prune juice and vodka. And Phillips screwdriver, a couple of you have to run for your life, I think. For you people, I would like to point out that this absolutely has nothing to do with women and men. Having protected ourselves. Everything, basically, about this sort of activity, in one sense, women already know. That would, as far as women never being involved with this, or to the extent of them historically being somebody well known like a Confucius or a Zoroaster, him. Be quite easy to realize, or you should be able to feel, that more or less, up until right now, at this time, life seems to have, at least for the time being, decided that the world population is about sufficient. And so you look around and you find out, those of you of most of the age, your mother or your grandmother, at least in our part of the world, was the last generation that motherhood, without any debate, seemed to be, they just felt it to be, if they had to say anything, to be the calling in life. Should I tell you one more time, we're not actually talking about women? Yeah, but you keep saying it. I know, but Jesus, give yourself a break. See, it's kind of a trick. It's going to be like a concussive cream puff. I still like the picture of... Some of all of you understand the adjective concussive. It's not that women debated it. It's not a decision they made. Only ordinary people believe such as that. In fact, ordinary people nowadays would even go past that. They would squeeze it, they would sit on it even further in their collective intelligence nowadays. Doing this circa 1994. They would do it on the basis that collectively they were forced into. They were boxed into such. In other words, you all know that now, amongst the other isms going on currently, is that if I just made the opening statements I had, that there could be an ordinary person of the female persuasion listening to this and go, well, you're right. But you know why? Women's never been able to pursue, to hang out around Agora or the Roxy or whatever it was in Athens and hang out with Socrates and those guys and talk was that men kept them down and wouldn't let them vote. You've already been through that. They could say to me, you were bringing that up last week. Wouldn't let them out of the house, trying to keep them barefoot and pregnant, and told them to stay home. They didn't have any sense. It was men's fault. That is very low-level understanding, although nowadays, as always, notice it passes, is accepted by the collective ordinary people, is that would show that you are up to date in your thinking. It would show that you are, in fact, probably more aware, that you are more politically, socially conscious than the average person, that you would say, no, well, wait a minute. It's not that women have been stupid. It's not that women could not have been mystics or were not interested in such as that, but it has been the collective pressure of men, of society. Hear, hear. And we all understand, or I assume you do, that right now that is accepted as being at the forefront of an expanded awareness of human affairs. But I'm telling you, it is a more constricted view. It's neither here nor there, but it's in fact more constrictive than if someone stood up and said, well, I'll tell you why women have never been philosophers, or, for instance, or interested in transcendental matters. It's because women are inherently stupid. Now, see, now I would really be concerned. You could have gotten by with that in public, I don't know, 50 years ago or 20 years ago. And so now it is seen as being an improvement to say, no, no, no. It's not that women are stupid. It has that they have been forced into a lesser position, not being able to explore the alternative possibilities of a spiritual and intellectual, blah, blah, blah life. And it's no improvement. That is, in an individual understanding, which were, don't forget the hand grenade, or don't forget the fortress, a mighty fortress filled with moose. Of course, we get good at the end. Imagine throwing this concussive cream puff at the fortress. Well, let's stop there. I like the picture. All of this, still assuming, since we're taping this, that I keep throwing the sides to ordinary civilian type people and brains out there that might hear this. You're going to miss it all if you stop thus far, because it's not about psychology, it is not about sociology, it is not about matters sexual even. It's just about, I don't know, what do you call it, life. Things as they are, all that weird stuff. Back to a wider description. Life, obviously, it should be obvious to you. The birth rate is down in this part of the world. Life has decided for the time being, we got enough people. So now you look around and there are more women now interested in such as this. There are women now writing books, and not just the sorts and the fringes that throughout history for the last 200 or 300 years have been women writing books that they were talking to dead Tibetan monks, and that's dead American Indians, and dead who knows what. In other words, that kind of fringe. Well, it was always, what little was involved with women was simply a fringe. And it was not even taken serious by serious occultists, which is funny enough, but I won't stop. We've already had our joke. All right, I can't resist. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it was like serious occultists 30 and 40 years ago. Some of you probably old enough to know this. They used to denounce. There's been several groups. They're not. I won't bother their names. They used to meet in libraries, and they were studying what they considered to be revealed works that came from some hidden records that somebody found in Tibet or somewhere. And there were mostly, catch the justice of this, and you would find these little groups, they were meeting, and they'd be meeting at the some room made available in a public library, and they would have little teas, and they would discuss whether they were talking to their dead mother or father, and it was usually 90% unmarried women. Used to be known as old maids, which I know is a pejorative term now. But the little funny part that I had to back up to make sure you got the humor was, so there they were. There was no secret. It was mostly just a social club. Plus, it was easy for an ordinary man. Shall I tell you one more time? We're not actually talking about men and women. But that ordinary men could look at that and say, oh, look at that. Those poor old, they couldn't get laid. They couldn't get married. They couldn't get a husband. And that's the kind of women end up thinking that they do Ouija boards, or, let's all maybe faint or swoon, drink a whole lot of tea and get overheated, and maybe we'll have some sort of vision. Serious male occultists used to try and denounce them. Do I have to repeat it? Serious male occultists. You know, the guys had stolen bits and pieces of Masonic rites and stuff, and they were meeting in some secret clubhouse. We're talking about 50-year-old bankers, well, 50-year-old men. And them dressed up in all kinds of funny clothes, you know, and fake blood on themselves and doing all kinds of handshakes that they think they got from the Old Testament or somewhere. And them taking it serious and then denouncing these poor old maids down there that didn't have anything better to do. And they think they're involved with serious occult activities. Ha! I just thought some of you enjoy a good warm joke. That's why I took time to back up. Think about the humor of serious male occultists denouncing. Life has obviously reached a point that right now the world population, or at least in our part of the world, and it's affecting all parts right now, is sufficient. You now find birth rate going down. It's not the first time it happened. And you find now that women sitting here, and I get the show, we get more and more people writing in. Anyway, women now just apparently have the free time. That suddenly, whether you're a mother or not, there are women all over the world, educated, ordinary, not neurotic, that just, you ask them, well, do you have any children? They go, well, no. And they're not disturbed by it. It's not like, no, I'm desperate. I've got to hurry and get pregnant. And your mother, or at least your grandmother, it was like if you were not part of a family, you had no reason. How are you going to live? Now there seems to be the time. Are you following me thus far? Are we all skipping along and me getting ready to push you in a muddy ditch? If you look back in history, I won't push you yet, because some of you are getting good enough, I can hear it sometimes, is you go ahead and you trip yourself before I get there. That's what makes it fun. You just go ahead yourself and you go, I know what's going on. See, that's the way you do it. You just trip yourself and go, wow. Back historically, just no traces. There simply are no female Buddhas, Jesuses, Muhammads. But notice this: in all the history, those three main ones, and others but those three main ones, they just taking the history as it's been recorded. They were surrounded by women. Their mothers were all in support. It was always, they had aunts or just females that just happened to be around that would seem to go around with them, would fix dinner or go ahead and find them a place to stay. Now, I don't mean just subservient, not just that, but they were there. There were women, sane women. We're slipping toward the ditch. May I suggest to you, to put it mildly, that even back then, a Jesus could have turned to whatever the women were, his mother, which is strange enough, but at least some of the other females around, or Buddha could have turned to some of the women that traveled around with him and started talking to them, or just told them something point blank that, I'm not going to say what, but something that would seem to be at that time and place, would have been taken as being some sort of mystical ideas, some sort of mega Gnostic view of life. And I can assure you that those kind of women would go, yeah. And in one sense, heard it easier than most men. Because as a rule, and I'm talking about just women, now let me expand a little of that. I didn't mean to infer that it was just because it was Jesus' mother or Muhammad's sister. Because there would be other women show up, let me put it that way. That Jesus could have turned to some woman that come up if he was talking somewhere, or Moses somewhere. And he was been making some kind of statements. She just got up there and started talking to him, or asking him to go into a glass of water, said, hello, how are you? You know, would you autograph my book? And it's like I talk about something, and he could say something to a woman, or even to a crowd. It didn't have to be just personally, to say something of an astounding nature. I assure you, just everything else being equal, just ordinary men and ordinary women, and they could hear it. Women would resist it less than men mentally. That women could hear something astounding. And when I say astounding, well, now you know what I mean. It doesn't matter what, but for the time and place, to say something absolutely astounding. Well, let's use the one I kept pulling out of Jesus saying, all right, I'll tell you something astounding. You guys want something astounding? Is love people who hate you. Now, I assure you, all the Pharisees, all the scribes, the rabbis, all intelligent men, even if they were already pre-sold on Jesus, like, I heard he was a great guy and some other stuff he said, but as soon as they heard that, I assure you, the crowd, a large part of them went, well, come on. They had to go, oh, no. And they had to walk, even those that came there to try and learn something, they had to go, oh. As they were supposed to. Because I even slipped it in for you tonight. Part of the problem of conveying transcendental info to ordinary minds is it will end up acting like a silver bullet to people's everyday werewolf consciousness. That even they show up and they go say, help me, tell me something. And they tell them, but it's like, I assume you people know a werewolf can only be killed by a silver bullet. And it's like they come and they say, help me. And you say, well, here. But it's like they feel like, well, I've been shot. Conversely, I'm saying that a large segment of the men who heard Jesus say that would resist it, would internally argue with it, no matter how they describe it, would have to go off and go, wait a minute, we're going to have to go think about this. Or, God, you're right. We asked for something astounding. Hey, on the surface, we'll admit this. That's astounding. Can we get back with you? We're going to have to decide now, do we still like you or have you lost your mind?
No.
I mean, if you're serious, we heard what you said. And he told, yeah, you heard me right. And they go, we'll have to get back with you. Everything else being equal, ordinary women could have been there for whatever reason and heard it. And at that time and place, they might not have done anything physically. But I'm telling you, internally, women just simply, it was just like, oh, sure. There was no big deal. Now, it begins to get more interesting the closer we get to the drain sewer, the ditch. If all that's correct, which it is, if all that is a fair telling, it's extremely fair, then what else does that signify? Since we're not talking about the sexes. Then I'll tell you. That is, hormones know the truth. Because that's what we're talking about. We are not talking about men and women, although we are. All we're talking about is the cargo, is the vessel, when we say men and women. It is not an absolute any more than anything else, but you have the gradual spectrum of women being driven, by and large, at least up until now, to give you a way to try and get one eyelid out, is that women are driven more by hormones than men have been. Boy, I hate to say shit like that because, well, it's not true, and that's why I have to keep backing around. Men have been driven gradually more by, let's try it the other way, by neurons, by the mind than women have. But see, now it has nothing to do with stupidity. It has to do that it should be simple enough to see that women, although they got to have men to get pregnant, that women are the main conveyors, the main protectors, the main support of human life. That all a man's got to do is show up, according to some of those disturbing figures I've seen in charts in the Kinsey or Masters report. All a man's got to show up, the average man, like for 52 seconds. Figures speak for themselves. I don't have any part of it. The point is, all a guy's got to do is a male show up for, just a few seconds. And that's it. And historically, men, among other creatures, but man, the woman's the one for 9 months. She's the one that's got to carry the kid. She's the one that's got to bear the child. And then she nurses the child. And it's not uncommon for the man to wander off after the 52 seconds, much less sticking around for 20 years to get the kid weaned and buy him a used car. Well, catch the tricky viciousness of even describing this in any way, because it'd be easy to start off and just say, well, women are more important to human life than men. And you can say that, and if you're sharp enough, if you knew, you go, yeah. But if you leave it there verbally, if you try and make that statement, that's an absolute crock. Because all you got to do is go, wait a minute, they're not more important. Because if you didn't have men, they couldn't get pregnant. And then you go, so there. That's what ordinary partisan thought is. You go, But understand the gradual non-partisan, the non-polarized view I'm trying to get you to consider right quick for reasons having to do with sex and social equality. No comment on human intelligence. It is that, relatively speaking, women have been survival-based, of more importance at the survival level. Therefore, they are, is what I mean when I say that they have been directed they are subject to, they are vessels for, they are outlets for, they are driven by hormones to a greater degree, everything else being equal, than men have been. That is also the basis, it's not all that complicated, why I know there are parts of life now has parts of the parade verbally in the same way as the movement of feminism, even responding to observations been made for thousands of years and even then been tested in an academic setting, in a classroom setting, in a laboratory setting here in the last 50 or 60 years, showing, which shouldn't have been a secret if anybody knew anything, the difference of, quote, intelligence between men and women. That men seem to be good at some things, like men are better at inventing a dishwasher. And they're certainly better in going and fixing it. And then women can say, well, that's the same thing as you saying, talking about pointing out that there have been no female Socrateses. It's because men held them down and kept them away from all this. Hey, let a woman, think about yourself. You can answer it. Let yourself, if you're a woman at a broken dishwasher or the car won't start, you can look at all kinds of ways. It's not stupidity. It's women, and it would be a man also, if he were driven by hormones to a greater degree, which some of you might consider the matter of homosexuality, because it's not just a cutoff line between that all women are driven hormonally and all men are driven neurally. Not hardly. Only unless you are, I don't know who you are, Jonathan Swift's great-great-grandson, or one of Bertrand Russell's stray nose hairs. Or one of the minor states that Carrie Nation used to have. I should have said one of Carrie Nation's minor states. But I don't think it would have helped anyway, would it? If you are hormonally driven, the area of your intelligence, the interest, the way in which you try and look at so-called problems in life, if it was a man and woman, it doesn't have to be just a 19th or 20th century problem of automobiles or repair of small electrical appliances in your home. Think back even to more feral days out in the jungle, living in the caves. And men and women, all of you should be sharp enough to feel what I'm talking about, once you think about it that way, that a woman, hormones, would try and look at these so-called problems in life, like we're hungry, we're cold, in a different way than a man does. It apparently men have been the ones in charge of, I think psychology likes to call it now, problem solving. And see, by that they mean such things as, I think they claim that men, but through testing they realize they think more spatially, or that they're better at mathematics, they're better than all kinds of this stuff. Except for this. You can look at the way and you can say, well, they think in a different way. They're better at all this kind of problem solving, but in a sense, life through women has raised problem solving to a new level. Because who solves the problems in life? You didn't like that? All right. Any sane man, what would he rather have? A car running or get laid? I mean, when he is in the mood. That is problem solving. I was trying to be funny. I thought you'd catch the real gist is the problem solving is women keep the race going. Women do a much larger part than men. You can look at as, I think also psychology used to try and deal with the term, a certain division of labor, or maybe that was Marx. And don't write and ask me, did I mean Chico or Harpo? Surprising now, since the downfall of the Soviet Union, the sense of humor that communists suddenly have now. Gather up the wagons, we're getting closer to the ditch. Simply consider, I'll wind back around it, no history, just no history, that's not hidden, just no history of female Buddhas, no history of distaff Platos, and it has got nothing to do with intelligence in women. And of course, any man who believes otherwise, we don't even have to comment on his intelligence. It just shows, it's surprising. If it wasn't his mother, he probably wouldn't even be alive. Any man that thinks, yes, I'm smarter than women. Which is another story there, but I guess we better press on. You didn't get it? Any man who says, well, I know what you're talking about, it's just that men are naturally smarter than women. At least there's one more person in life that you don't ever have to talk to again. I mean, anybody who says that, at least if it's your concern that before life's over, I'm going to have some kind of serious conversation with everybody in the world, maybe more than once, at least you can take him off the list. So we've got no female Buddhas. There seems to be no female mystics. And yet I tell you quite correctly that everything else, we're talking about ordinary, sane women at any time in any place, they could hear the most astounding thing that Buddha ever said at the time. And they would have more immediately, with less resistance, almost with no resistance, go, yeah. It's like, I knew that, but, so? Because, now why? Now, I'm going to say women again, but remember again, when we get closer to the ditch, this is not women, we're talking about hormones, we're talking about life itself and its expression through humans. That if Buddha was there making a statement, and a woman, they were sitting there, and a spirit came up. Let's assume we're a secret, some kind of spirit, and we came up behind one. You nodded your head just then, didn't you? You understood what he said, didn't you? And the woman go, well, yeah. Had you ever thought that? No. But you don't find any fault with it. I mean, it's just, she might say, well, it's just patently true. But you never thought about it. No, never had occasion to. Would you understand? You see all those men, and some men fainted, and several of them got real mad and were reaching for their guns. And she said, well, yeah, I know that. I heard that sometimes they have trouble here whenever he speaks. And we said, well, what did you make of this? To you just heard it. You just heard it was sane. I said, is that your sister next to you? And she goes, yeah. I said, do you think she did? And she goes, oh, yeah, I know she did. And they could just look at each other, and they'd look. And if we were those kind of smart spirits, we'd realize, well, she was right. In other words, the point I'm making is she understands, well, yeah, I understood what he said. It's true. And any other decent woman does. And if I say, well, how do you account for the fact that you never talked about it, you said, you never even heard about it, you never put words on it, how do you account for that? She probably hormonally, nobody's mind, a female mind, anybody's mind, but she probably could not respond to that intelligently. I'll do it for her. How do you account for that? Now, I'm really pulling the words. Here's what it amounts to, though. The reason she has never thought about it, and why she could not answer if I said, well, as soon as you heard it, you went, yeah, yeah, and she went, yeah, yeah. And that you understand that is a valid, that's true. And she goes, oh, yeah. And in fact, it could be of some importance. You know who that is talking. You said the whole crowd showed up. She said, well, yeah, I was expecting. And I said, well, how do you account for the fact you say that it's obviously true? You don't have any problem whatsoever with it. I mean, it's just true. Yeah. Well, how do you account for it, or what do you have to say that you never thought about it? Now, do you understand what I'm getting at? Now, that'd be true with anybody, male or female. But she would then be to the point there is no answer, and I'm going to answer for her. It's that I don't really see the importance of it. Now, I said I was stretching words because she just said, me speaking for her, that she heard whatever it was he said, like love those who hate you. That is the secret to being more conscious. And all the guys there, a large segment of them went, oh, gee, oh, come on. Let's just use that one. And so we slip into her brain and say, you heard that? She said, oh, yeah. And I could tell inside, I could read your mind. You nodded, yeah, yeah. She went, well, sure. And I said, well, have you ever thought that? Was that something that he had already slipped you they gave you a leak that his PR man let you hear this first? Oh, no, I never heard it. But you immediately realized it was true. Oh, yeah. Have you ever thought anything close to it? No. Did you ever think about stuff like this? No. Well, have you been reading, stuff about metaphysical ideas or philosophies? And so you don't ever sit around and think about stuff like this. Anything even close? No. But as soon as you heard it, you went, yeah, yeah. And then I asked, well, how do you account for that? I mean, how could it be that you immediately hear it and you realize that it could be of some importance? Again, now I'm doing this for a reason. It had nothing to do with the sexes again, but listen to me. her mind, then I'm even stretching that. If I said, well, why is it the men here take it so important? You realize you've got a big crowd that showed up for this. Oh yeah, I know who he was. I came here. My husband drugged me here. Well, he brought me along. So you wouldn't have come here probably on your own. She might say, well, probably not. But you understand that they're taking what he says in a most serious manner. You see that right now there are people up there that smoke's coming out of their ears, and they're fuming over that one statement of him saying, all right, I'm going to tell you the way to be more conscious. I'm going to tell it to you just in a few words, that is, love people who hate you. And she says, yeah, I see it. And you realize that a lot of them are resisting it, and some of them have sort of fainted and gone into, it looks like a mystical state, smiling like they immediately heard it, but a large segment of them are resisting and about to get mad. She goes, yeah? But you hear, to you, it sounds to be the truth. Oh, yeah. But you never think about mystical matters or weird stuff, no. But they take it very seriously, you see. Yeah, I see that. I knew that. And then I'm asking, back to the question, I say, in the widest possible sense of the word, how do you account for that? What could be going on? And this is where she couldn't answer, or any human could. I'm not going to answer for it, because this is what hormones could say if they could speak. They say, well, I don't see the importance of it. Now, it's trickier. Importance is the best word I could use, and it sucks. For her to say, I don't see the importance of it, is if I say, well, why is it you hear it now? And you go, yeah, that's true. You do follow how I'm doing this. We're not playing a game of verbal logic, but I want you to understand. She's admitted. She's in the crowd, and Buddha, Moses, Jesus, is there, big day, and somebody says, well, you tell us, or he says, I'm going to tell you. I know what you show up. I'm going to tell you how to be more conscious. I'm going to tell you how to, you want to understand the secret of life? Personally. Not listening to me, not reading books from the scribes and all the priests. And the crowd goes, yeah, that's why we're here. He says, I'm going to tell you. How to do it individual is love people who hate you. Now follow this. And this woman, we just picked out and got in her brain, she showed up because she was with her husband. He said, come along. So she came along. She had heard of him. And so we asked her, did you hear that? He said that was the way to be more conscious, to be a real person, to be a real Jew, Christian, Buddhist, and to be more conscious. And she says, yeah. He said that was the secret. She said, I heard it. Do you have any problem with it? And she would actually look. She wouldn't probably even respond. She'd like, how can you have a problem with the truth? I mean, it's just obvious truth. And then we say, well, wait a minute. All these men showed up. You wouldn't have shown up had not a man brought you. She said, no, probably not. But you're here and you heard it, yeah? And you don't have any resistance. No problem. No. And you do realize that half the crowd, at least out here, the men are about ready to lynch him, or they're holding their heads. Some of them seem to have fallen down in a trance and went, that's it. But a large part of them are staggering around now going, oh, come on. Yeah, I can see that, she says. You say, all right. But you say you never think about such as that. No. Not anything close. No. But you understand they take this to be an important matter. She goes, yeah, I understand that. And you hear it. Yes. Then we ask her, well, how is it you hear it? You know it's supposed to be important. And at least half the men here are ready to fight. They just can't believe it. It's so important. It's such an important matter. Half of them, unless they believe it, seem to accept it, and half of them don't. But at least all of them take it as being a serious matter. That's why they showed up. Yeah. And you say you never think about that, and yet you heard it, yeah? How do you account for that? And she says, well, why hadn't you ever thought that? Or why don't you ever think like that? And she says, well, I don't really see the importance of it. The trick word, and I don't do it as a trick, there is no word. She says, I don't see the importance. See, because when I went back through that, I'm asking her, I said, do you understand how important they take this to be? And she goes, well, yeah, I know that. I've heard of it. I know all about it. My husband was ready to follow this guy Buddha anywhere. He's already told me he's going to sell the farm. I understand it's important. And you heard it, yeah. And you don't find any fault with what he said. No. How can you? And you say that you never think about such as that. No. But as soon as you heard it, you know it was true, yeah? Well, why don't you ever think about that? And she'd have to say. She couldn't, but I did it for her, man. She'd go, well, it's hard to see the importance. I don't see the importance of it. You understand? Me even putting the words, speaking for her, it's already become just self-contradictory. That she hears it, she understands it's supposed to be serious. She says yes. That I believe it. I mean, it's true. And you say, well, why don't you ever think about such as that? Or why have you never thought that? It sounds simple. She goes, well, I don't see the importance of it. Now, Absolutely forget men and women. It's just that we're all born being an outlet somewhere. It is hormones speaking. Hormones recognize. They cannot speak, but hormones don't find, quote, great secret work, mystical activity, transcendental struggles. Hormones don't find that weird at all. Now you got to remember, they don't speak. That's why I was doing this little thing about women, because they are the better, they are the greater outlet for the hormonal thrust of life, relatively speaking, than men are. That's it. Hormones then, as represented by women, women being the vehicle, relatively speaking, a greater vehicle for the hormonal survival level of humanity than men are. Hormones hear the truth, which almost gags me as much as saying important, that women say, well, I don't see the important. Hormones can hear the mystical, and they recognize the reality of it. I don't care whether it's Buddha talking, Confucius talking, somebody you never heard of, some monk somewhere. Hormones never have a problem with it. The survival level of humanity, which is always silent, it has no problem. Men do not rail against, men do not resist, quote, the truth, which is simply transcendental information, more conscious detailing of what life is at any particular time and place. The survival level of humanity has no problem with it. None. It is not the survival level of life that has any problem with, quote, mystical or unusual ideas. Assuming the unusual ideas are of some transcendental nature, not just weirdness we're talking about. It is not. As soon as they hear it, they understand the reality of, quote, mysticism. Now look at a kind of, may we call it, strange beauty? Why not? They have no problem with it. That if we now, instead of my conjured scenario of the woman hearing Buddha speak, instead of me going through all that, we have hormones. Instead of talking about men and women, let's talk about we've got hormones that show up to Buddha speak, and neurons show up in little packages, and it says so and so. Hormones hear it. No? If they could hear words, they got no problem. Who is it meant for? Neurons. Who resist? Only neurons. Life has a quite beautiful and strange ability. The human mind invents board games. It is in reality, and it spends the rest of its life. The more sophisticated the neurons are, the mind. The more sophisticated, the more active, the more educated, the more civilized it is at any ordinary level. It then spends a greater part, or a good part of the rest of its life, attempting to rearrange the pieces on the chess. Let's call it a chessboard. A chessboard. And they're sure that I'm getting close. And the question, they call it the secret of life. If they're scientists, they think, well, we're developing theories. We're expanding theories. We're refining theories. We're making up for past mistakes and certain theories we had before to find out where reality came from, the origins of life. All the way from that to religious people saying, well, find out who made us, what's the purpose of life. Whatever it is, you have the human mind now. It moves the pieces continually. And as it should, when asked, just at all, is certain I am getting closer by rearranging the patterns, by rearranging the pieces on the board. And what's the question, though? The question they're asking, where did the pieces come from? Where did this game come from? Everybody fall in the ditch and go into water? The human intellect, neurons know reality. Hormones are reality. They know reality. Hormones are reality. Comparably speaking, hormones are reality, and then comparably, neurons, metaphors. But once neurons invent verbal reality, which they do, then reality becomes a metaphor. So the mind has this chessboard, and scientists, they're looking out there mystics and religious people, either looking in here, but what they're doing is we keep rearranging this. We get closer and closer. We're narrowing it down. We're expanding it. And what's the question? Some of them say, where did God come from? Where did we come from? Scientists say, where did reality, where did the universe come from? It's all the same question. They're looking at this board, this reality, and thinking, where in the hell did this thing come from? You invented it. But as soon as you tell the mind, we're not talking about consciousness now, not expanded consciousness. As soon as you tell the mind that, the insane mind, it has immediately placed you as being on the verge of insanity, because it goes, what? And you say, you're asking where the game came from, this board. You invented it, you dumb klutz. And it goes, I couldn't. Are you serious? And you go, yes. And it says, I couldn't have invented it, because here it is. That's what I'm talking about. If you're not in touch with, which takes something beyond the ordinary mind, with the continuing core, the non-temporal core of what consciousness is, you can't back up. You can't change the past. You don't know what it was. And you can't tell the mind, quit worrying where this chessboard came from. Don't you get it? You made up the board. You invented it. And now you're saying, let's see, if I move this piece over, where did these pieces come from? This is strange. We're born here on this planet, and there's this chess game, this reality. Where did it come from? You invented it. No. I couldn't have invented it, or I wouldn't be asking where it came from. It wouldn't have been here. And it got you. It ain't got me, it got you. The man looked at his life and said to his mind, you have led me on quite a merry chase. This is the last version, not tonight's. And his mind said, led you? Led you? He said, I was you. Hormones can hear this, and they think, so what? And people hear it. Men, serious would-be New Age occultists, serious, and now there's plenty of women who have the spare time to be part-time men. That is, to be more neural. And you can say the same sort of thing that hormones go, well, yeah, sure. And you say the same thing and neurons go, Is that what being more awake, being more conscious is? That everybody else has been resisting that, which is a invented opposition? Or, I sort of like mine tonight, looking at a game, a chessboard, any sort of game, and look, where did this come from? If we knew that, we'd know it all. Be a scientist or religious thinker. If we just knew where these pieces and this board came from, then we'd know it all. You invented it. You neurons. Hormones hear it. I'm going to go, and neurons go, Is being more conscious, being closer to the hormones, except you can't start there. The man tonight who wrote the Knowledge Doctor and said, is it possible to actually be a mystic and think like everybody else does? And he says, I believe what you meant to ask was, is it possible to be a mystic and still be able to think like everybody else does? Which is easy to answer, is yes. Because that's how you got started, and you still got that ability. At any given time, all you got to do is just be partially distracted and think, wait a minute, if I move this rook over here, that will explain why women treat me this way. If I can get, wait a minute, if I can just get past this other line, this other pawn here, that will tell me why I can't seem to be successful in life. Or if I could just get my king out of harm's way here, I bet that would begin to answer to me why I always felt like that my mother didn't love me as much as my brother Hubert. And it's all the same thing. You keep, well, I will move it. We're getting closer. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere in the study of psychology, the study of history, anthropology, theology, cosmology. We're getting closer. We keep moving the pieces, and there's no doubt at the ordinary level it is. It's got up here that way, or everybody'd give up. We're getting closer. And you come wandering in on a drunken spree from another universe and go, what is it you guys are trying to figure out? And they go, we want to know where these pieces came from, this board. And you went, well, you guys made it up. It's your game. And they go, get a load of him. We're out of tape? Good. I bet men in the audience and women are out of patience. Men and women are out of their minds. No. You're not out of patience. No. Don't let that, of course, show up on tape.